At my brother's funeral, I noticed a man staring at me without blinking. He walked over, placed a key in my hand, and said, "This is the key to his hidden room. He wanted only you to have it." I opened the door and froze. "I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My brother Marcus died on a Tuesday in March. Heart attack, they said. 52 years old, successful architect, health conscious to a fault. It didn't make sense, but grief has a way of clouding judgment, and I accepted what the doctors told me. I'd always been the steady one, the numbers guy. While Marcus designed buildings that touched the sky, I helped people manage their retirement accounts. Different paths, but we'd remained close. Weekly phone calls, monthly dinners when I visited from Philadelphia. He lived in Seattle with his wife Valerie, married 5 years. His second marriage, her third. The funeral was held on a grey Saturday at Evergreen Chapel. Rain drummed against the windows as people filed past the casket. I stood near the front, shaking hands, accepting condolences, feeling nothing. Shock does that. It wraps you in cotton wool, muffles everything. Valerie played the grieving widow perfectly. Designer black dress, tasteful jewelry, tears that seemed to arrive on cue. Her sister Carol stood beside her, a slightly harder version of the same polished facade. They'd both married well, both buried husbands before. The thought floated through my mind unbidden, and I pushed it away. What kind of person thinks such things at a funeral? That's when I noticed him. An older man, maybe 70, standing apart from the other mourners. He wore a maintenance worker's uniform, navy blue and worn, but he wasn't watching the casket. He was watching me. His stare was unwavering, intense, and when our eyes met, he didn't look away. He approached slowly, moving through the crowd with purpose. People stepped aside without seeming to notice him. When he reached me, he took my hand as if to shake it, but instead pressed something cold and metallic into my palm. "This is the key to his hidden room," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He wanted only you to have it." Before I could respond, before I could even ask his name, he turned and walked away. I looked down at my hand. An old brass key, heavy and ornate, with a tag attached. The tag bore an address I recognized, Marcus's house, and a simple notation, "Basement, behind the wine rack." I closed my fist around it. Who was that? Valerie appeared at my elbow, her perfume overwhelming. "What did he give you?" "Just a card." I lied smoothly, slipping the key into my pocket. "A sympathy card." She studied my face, and for a moment something flickered in her eyes, something cold. Then the mask returned. "How thoughtful. Will you be staying in town for a few days? We should go through Marcus's papers together." "I have some time," I said. "I'll come by the house tomorrow." That night, in my hotel room, I held the key and thought about my brother. Marcus had been secretive lately, the last few months. Our phone calls had grown shorter, his responses more guarded. When I'd asked if everything was okay, he'd said he was working on something important, something he'd tell me about soon. Had this been it? A hidden room? But why hide a room from your own wife? What had Marcus been keeping from Valerie? I couldn't sleep. Questions multiplied in the darkness. Who was that old man? How did he know about the hidden room? And why had Marcus wanted only me to access it? The next morning, I drove to Marcus's house. The rain had stopped, leaving Seattle washed clean and gleaming. The house sat in Laurelhurst, an upscale neighborhood with water views. Marcus had designed it himself, all clean lines and natural light. Now it felt like a mausoleum. Valerie greeted me at the door, still in black, though this outfit was more casual. "Jonathan, come in. Carol's here too. We were just going through some of Marcus's things." Carol waved from the living room, surrounded by boxes. We're donating his clothes. No point keeping them, right? I nodded, though something about the scene bothered me. They were moving fast, too fast. Marcus had been dead less than a week. I thought we could start with his office, Valerie said, leading me upstairs. All those files and papers. You're better with financial documents than we are. But I had no intention of looking at his office. Not yet. Actually, I was hoping to look at his wine collection, I said. Marcus promised me that bottle of Bordeaux he'd been saving, the 95. I'd like to have it, as a keepsake. Valerie's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. The wine cellar? I didn't know Marcus kept anything special down there. He did, I said firmly. He mentioned it last time we talked. She hesitated, then shrugged. Of course, it's in the basement. Help yourself. The basement stairs creaked under my weight. The space below was finished, with recessed lighting and a small entertainment area. The wine rack dominated the far wall, a custom piece that Marcus had designed himself. Floor to ceiling, dark wood, holding perhaps 100 bottles. I pretended to browse, aware that Valerie might be watching. But she'd returned upstairs, and I heard her voice talking to Carol, too distant to make out words. Behind the wine rack. That's what the tag had said. I examined the rack more closely. It was mounted to the wall, but when I pressed against the right side, I felt it give slightly. Not mounted. Hinged. My heart hammered as I pulled. The entire rack swung outward, smooth and silent, revealing a small door behind it. I inserted the key. It turned with a soft click. The door opened, and I stepped into darkness. My hand found a light switch. What I saw made my blood run cold. The room was barely 8 feet square, with no windows. A desk dominated the space, covered in documents, photographs, and a laptop. But it was the wall that made my hands shake. Photographs, dozens of them, pinned to a corkboard. Valerie and Carol in restaurants, shops, parking lots. Some were taken from a distance, clearly surveillance photos. Red strings connected images to newspaper clippings. I stepped closer, my breath shallow. The headlines jumped out. Seattle businessman dies suddenly. Tech executive's fatal heart attack. Real estate developer's unexpected death. 4 different articles, 4 different men, spanning the last 15 years. And in the margins, in Marcus's handwriting, dates, names, timelines. I picked up one of the clippings. Thomas Chen, tech executive, died at 53, survived by his wife Valerie Chen. My stomach lurched. Another article. Richard Vance, real estate developer, died at 49, survived by his wife Carol Vance, Valerie's first husband, Carol's second. The room tilted. I grabbed the desk for support. Marcus had been investigating them. His own wife. How long had he known? What had he discovered? I forced myself to sit, to breathe, to think clearly. The laptop was password protected, but knowing Marcus, I tried his usual combination. It worked. The desktop opened to a folder labeled Evidence. Inside were medical records, financial statements, insurance policies. I clicked through them, my horror mounting with each document. Marcus had been meticulous. He'd traced a pattern. Each husband had died within 5 to 7 years of marriage. Each death had been ruled natural causes, heart attacks, strokes, 1 aneurysm. Each widow had collected substantial life insurance payouts. But Marcus had gone deeper. He'd found medical anomalies, traces of substances that shouldn't have been there, explained away by doctors as complications or coincidences. He'd tracked pharmacy records, credit card purchases, travel histories. And then I found his journal entries, dated, detailed. December 10th. Found the bottle in Valerie's bathroom cabinet. Digoxin. She said it was for her mother's heart condition, but her mother died 3 years ago. January 15th. Feeling increasingly unwell. Fatigue, irregular heartbeat, nausea. Asked Valerie if she's been giving me anything for my stress. She brings me tea every night before bed. Started pouring it out when she's not looking. February 3rd. Hired a private investigator to look into Carol and Valerie's past. They're sisters, but they've used different last names, created distance between themselves. The pattern is clear now. They've done this before, multiple times. February 28th. Updated my will without telling Valerie. Everything goes to Jonathan now, through a trust she can't contest. If I die suddenly, he'll know to look. I've made arrangements. The key will reach him. March the 2nd had been his last entry, 3 days before his death. I confronted Valerie last night. Told her I knew. She didn't deny it. She smiled. Said I had no proof, that I sounded paranoid, that maybe I should see a doctor. She's going to accelerate the timeline. I can feel it. But I've already sent copies of everything to my attorney with instructions to seal them until after my death. Jonathan will get them. He'll know what to do. I'm sorry, brother. I should have seen it sooner. I sat in that hidden room for what might have been minutes or hours, the weight of Marcus's terror pressing down on me. He'd known he was dying, known they were killing him, and he'd been powerless to stop it, or too paralyzed by the impossibility of proving it. But he'd left me this. Evidence, documentation, a trail. My phone buzzed. A text from Valerie. Jonathan, where are you? We're waiting to discuss the estate. The estate? Of course. They wanted to move fast, settle everything before anyone looked too closely. But Marcus had changed his will. They didn't know that yet. When they found out, what would they do? What would they do to me? I photographed everything, every document, every photo, every page of the journal. I backed up the laptop files to a cloud drive, then to a USB stick that I pocketed. 30 minutes of frantic, focused work. Then I closed the laptop, turned off the light, and locked the hidden room. I swung the wine rack back into place and selected a bottle of wine at random. When I returned upstairs, Valerie and Carol were waiting in the living room. They looked up as I entered, and I saw it now, what I'd missed before. The calculation in their eyes, the predatory patience. Found it, I said, holding up the wine bottle. My voice was steady, though my heart raced. The Bordeaux. Marcus would want me to have it. Of course, Valerie said. Now, shall we discuss the will? Marcus's attorney is coming tomorrow. We thought it would be helpful if you were there. Absolutely, I said. I want to make sure everything is handled properly. Carol smiled. We knew we could count on you, Jonathan. Family should stick together, especially in difficult times. Family. The word tasted like ash. I left an hour later, after accepting coffee I didn't drink, and listening to their plans to sell the house quickly, settle the estate, move on with their lives. They were confident, assured. They'd done this before, but they'd never dealt with someone like me. Back at my hotel, I laid out everything I'd photographed. The evidence was damning, but was it enough? Medical anomalies weren't proof. Suspicious patterns weren't proof. A journal written by a dead man who'd sounded increasingly paranoid. Defense attorneys would shred it. I needed more. I needed help. And I needed to move carefully. Because if they'd killed 4 men already, 5, counting Marcus, they wouldn't hesitate to make it 6. I opened my laptop and started making a list. First step, find Marcus's attorney. Second step, find that private investigator. Third step, stay alive long enough to expose them. My brother had trusted me with this burden. I wouldn't let him down. Marcus's attorney was a woman named Elizabeth Cordell, with offices downtown in a building that overlooked Puget Sound. I called first thing Monday morning and told her receptionist it was urgent. By 10 a.m. I was sitting across from her desk. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. A folder sat before her, sealed with Marcus's name on it. Mr. Reeves, she said, I've been expecting you. Your brother left specific instructions. You knew about the hidden room? I knew he was concerned about his safety. He came to see me 6 weeks ago, updated his will, and left this folder with instructions to give it to you if he died." She slid the folder across the desk. "He also paid me a substantial retainer to represent you in any legal proceedings that might result from his death." I opened the folder. Inside were copies of everything I'd found in the hidden room, plus additional documents I hadn't seen. Bank records showing large deposits to Valerie's accounts from previous husbands' estates. Receipts for chemical purchases Carol had made under a false name. Testimony from a pharmacy technician who'd refused to fill a suspicious prescription. "This is incredible," I breathed. "Why didn't he go to the police?" He tried. Elizabeth's expression darkened. "He filed a report 3 weeks before his death. The detective he spoke to was sympathetic, but said there wasn't enough for an investigation. No crime had been committed yet. Just suspicions about past deaths that had all been ruled natural causes. And then he died. Yes, and his death was also ruled natural causes, acute heart failure. The hospital found slightly elevated levels of digoxin in his system, but his doctor said it was prescribed for an arrhythmia he'd been treated for last year. But Marcus didn't have an arrhythmia. Not according to his previous medical records, no. But 6 months ago, he had an appointment with a new cardiologist, someone Valerie recommended. That doctor's records show a diagnosis and prescription." "Forged," I said. "Likely. But proving it." Elizabeth shook her head. "That's where we need more than suspicion. However, Marcus's new will complicates things for Valerie considerably. He left everything to you in an irrevocable trust. The house, his accounts, his assets. She gets nothing." I felt a grim satisfaction. "When does she find out?" "The reading is scheduled for tomorrow. She's expecting to be named sole beneficiary." Elizabeth's smile was thin. "She's going to be very surprised. And very angry." "Yes, which is why you need to be careful. Your brother was paranoid for a good reason." She pulled out another document. "I've also been in contact with the detective who took Marcus's initial report, Detective Sarah Chen. She was frustrated when Marcus died, felt she should have pushed harder for an investigation. She's willing to look into this now, unofficially." "Will that be enough for charges?" "Not yet. We need something solid. Something that proves intent and method." Elizabeth leaned forward. "The digoxin is key. If we can prove Valerie had access to it, was administering it to Marcus without his knowledge, and that it caused his death, we have a case. But the medical records are complicated. We need an expert. I'll find one. I've already taken the liberty." She handed me a business card. "Dr. Raymond Foster, forensic toxicologist. He's reviewed Marcus's medical files and the autopsy report. He's willing to testify that the digoxin levels were consistent with chronic poisoning, not therapeutic use. But we need to establish the source." I pocketed the card. "What about the other deaths? The previous husbands?" "That's where Detective Chen comes in. She's looking into those cases now, quietly. If we can establish a pattern, link Valerie and Carol to multiple suspicious deaths, it strengthens everything. But these things take time." Time. How much did I have? "There's one more thing," Elizabeth said. "Marcus set up a safety measure. If anything happens to you, if you die or disappear, all of this evidence gets released automatically to law enforcement, the media, and the state attorney general. It's in a digital dead man's switch. You have to check in every 72 hours or it triggers. My brother had thought of everything. Even protection for me." "Show me how it works." She did. A simple app on my phone, a button to press confirming I was safe. If I failed to check in, the countdown began. 72 hours, then everything went public. I left Elizabeth's office with a plan taking shape. Tomorrow Valerie would learn she'd inherited nothing. She and Carol would be furious, desperate. They might make mistakes. And I would be watching. That evening, my phone rang. Valerie. "Jonathan, I just wanted to check in. Make sure you're doing okay." Her voice was honey-sweet, concerned. This must be so difficult for you. I'm managing, I said carefully. Good. The will reading is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Can you make it? I'll be there. Wonderful. And Jonathan, I've been thinking. Marcus would want us to be close. You're all the family I have left. A pause. Why don't you come for dinner tonight? Carol and I are cooking. We'd love to have you. Every instinct screamed danger. That's kind, but I'm not feeling well. Maybe another time. Of course. You rest. Another pause. Longer this time. Jonathan, you didn't take anything from the house yesterday, did you? Besides the wine? My pulse quickened. Like what? Oh, I don't know. Marcus kept some papers in his office. Financial things. I just want to make sure everything's accounted for. I didn't go into his office. I said truthfully. Just the wine cellar. Right, the wine cellar. Her tone had changed, subtly, sharper. Well, get some rest. See you tomorrow. She hung up. They knew something was wrong. Maybe they'd checked the wine cellar, found evidence the rack had been moved. Maybe they'd just sensed my changed demeanor. Predators can smell fear. But I wasn't afraid. I was angry. I texted Detective Chen. They're getting suspicious. Moving faster. How long until you have something? Her response came within minutes. Working on it. Found something interesting in the Richard Vance death investigation. Files were marked closed, but one detective noted inconsistencies. Meeting with him tomorrow. Stay safe. One more day. I just needed to survive one more day, get through the will reading, and let Valerie and Carol show their hand. I ordered room service, checked every lock twice, and slept with my phone beside me, Marcus's evidence backed up in 3 separate locations. Tomorrow, the war would begin in earnest. The attorney's office felt different in daylight. Colder. Elizabeth Cordell sat at the head of the conference table, Valerie and Carol on one side, me on the other. A legal assistant witnessed in the corner. Valerie wore designer widow's weeds, black Chanel, pearls, understated makeup that somehow emphasized her red-rimmed eyes. Carol matched her, a united front of grief. They expected to be rewarded for their performance. "Thank you all for coming," Elizabeth began. "We're here for the reading of Marcus Reeves's last will and testament, executed on February 15th of this year." Valerie straightened. February 15th, just 3 weeks before Marcus died. Elizabeth read through the standard legal preamble, then reached the relevant section. "To my wife, Valerie Reeves, I leave my personal effects and the sum of $50,000 as required by state law for a surviving spouse." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "What?" Valerie's voice was barely a whisper. "The remainder of my estate," Elizabeth continued smoothly, "including my home, investment accounts, life insurance proceeds, and all other assets, I leave to my brother, Jonathan Michael Reeves, to be held in an irrevocable trust with him as sole trustee and beneficiary." "That's impossible." Carol's voice cut through the silence. "Marcus wouldn't have done that." "I have the will right here," Elizabeth said. "Properly executed, witnessed, and notarized. Marcus was of sound mind when he made these changes." "Sound mind?" Valerie's composure cracked. "He was paranoid, obsessed, seeing threats that didn't exist. Anyone could see his mental state was deteriorating." "That's a serious allegation," Elizabeth said coolly. "Do you have evidence of mental incompetence?" Valerie's jaw tightened. She looked at me, and the mask finally dropped. What I saw beneath was chilling. Pure rage, calculation, hatred. "You knew about this," she said to me. "You convinced him to change his will." "I had no idea Marcus changed anything," I said truthfully. "This is the first I'm hearing of it." "Liar." Carol leaned forward. "You've been plotting this from the beginning. We should have seen it. The way you watched us at the funeral, snooping around the house. I took a bottle of wine," I said. "You took more than that." Valerie's voice was ice. Marcus had files, documents. They're missing. You stole them. That's a serious accusation. Elizabeth interjected. Are you claiming a crime was committed? Valerie hesitated. She couldn't report stolen documents without revealing what they contained. Stalemate. We're contesting this will. Carol said, on grounds of mental incompetence and undue influence. That's your right, Elizabeth agreed. Though I should warn you, will contests are expensive, time-consuming, and rarely successful when the testator updated his will with legal counsel present. We'll see about that. Valerie stood. Jonathan, you're making a terrible mistake. Marcus was my husband. That house is my home. Those assets are rightfully mine. The law disagrees, I said. She leaned across the table, her face inches from mine. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Walk away now while you still can. Is that a threat? It's advice. Her smile was venomous. Tragic things happen to people who interfere in matters that don't concern them. Heart attacks run in your family, after all. The room went silent. Even Carol looked startled by the naked threat. Elizabeth's legal assistant was typing frantically, recording every word. I think we're done here, Elizabeth said, standing. Valerie, Carol, I suggest you retain separate counsel if you intend to contest. This firm represents Jonathan's interests. Valerie grabbed her purse. You'll regret this, she said to me. Both of you. They left, Carol's heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. The door slammed behind them. I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding. Well, Elizabeth said, that was more dramatic than usual. She threatened me. You heard her. I did, and we have it on record. She nodded to her assistant. Which may prove useful. But Jonathan, she wasn't bluffing. These women are dangerous. I know. Do you? Really? She sat down again, her expression serious. They've killed at least 4 men that we know of, possibly more. They're sophisticated, patient, and they've gotten away with it for over a decade. Now you've taken away their payday, humiliated them, and threatened their freedom. What should I do? Stay in public places. Don't eat or drink anything they provide. Vary your routine, and for God's sake, don't meet with them alone. My phone buzzed. Detective Chen. Heard about the will reading. Are you safe? I texted back. For now. They threatened me directly. Good. Not good that they threatened you, but good we have it on record. I'm meeting with the Vance case detective this afternoon. We'll update you tonight. The next 3 days were a blur of paranoia and precaution. I moved hotels twice. I ate only in crowded restaurants, watching everyone who came near my food. I checked in with Elizabeth's dead man's switch every morning. Valerie called 6 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that escalated from wounded confusion to barely contained fury. Jonathan, please, we need to talk about this misunderstanding. Then, you're being unreasonable and cruel. Finally, this isn't over. Carol sent text messages. Think about what you're doing. You're destroying Marcus's legacy. And later, people who make enemies of us always regret it. On the 3rd day, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I sat in my hotel room, curtains drawn, and let the exhaustion hit. My brother had lived with this fear for months, the constant vigilance, the knowledge that someone close to him was actively trying to kill him. How had he endured it? I called my office in Philadelphia, told them I was extending my bereavement leave. I called my ex-wife just to hear a familiar voice. She asked if I was okay. I lied and said yes. That night, I slept for 12 hours straight, phone in hand, door triple locked. The email arrived on Thursday morning. Subject line, "Can we talk?" It was from Valerie, formally worded, conciliatory in tone. Jonathan, I apologize for my behavior at the will reading. Grief makes us say things we don't mean. I've had time to reflect, and I realize we're both hurting. Marcus would hate to see us at odds. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? No lawyers, no accusations, just family trying to find a way forward? Please." I stared at the message. This was the shift Elizabeth had predicted. Force hadn't worked, so now they'd try manipulation. I forwarded it to Elizabeth and Detective Chen. Elizabeth responded first. Classic abuser tactic. Apologize, minimize, attempt to regain control. Don't meet her alone. Detective Chen wrote, "If you do meet, do it somewhere very public, and let me know when and where. We might be able to observe." I debated ignoring it, but they'd just escalate. Better to face them on my terms. I replied, "Pike Place Market, Saturday 10 a.m., the Starbucks near the fish market. Crowded, public, multiple exits, witnesses everywhere." Her response was quick. "Perfect. Thank you for giving me this chance." Saturday morning dawned grey and drizzly, typical Seattle weather. I arrived at Pike Place 40 minutes early, positioned myself where I could watch the entrance, and ordered coffee I had no intention of drinking. Detective Chen had told me she'd have plainclothes officers nearby, watching. Valerie arrived precisely at 10, alone. She'd dressed down, jeans, a simple sweater, minimal makeup. The grieving widow act again, but softer this time, more vulnerable. She spotted me, waved, bought her own coffee, and sat down across from me. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here," I said neutrally. She cradled her coffee cup, the picture of contrition. "Jonathan, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About Marcus, about the will, about everything, and I realized I've been selfish." I waited. "Marcus clearly wanted you to have his assets. I was hurt, yes, but maybe there were reasons. Maybe he thought you'd manage everything better. Maybe he wanted to take care of you." She looked up, eyes glistening. "I should respect his wishes. That's very understanding of you. So I'm withdrawing the will contest. You'll have full access to everything. No legal battles." She paused. "But I do have one request. Here it comes. The house, it's my home, Jonathan. I know legally it belongs to you now, but I've put so much of myself into it. The renovations, the garden, the memories. Could we work out an arrangement? Maybe I could buy it from you at a fair price, or rent it for a while until I find something else." "Reasonable. Almost too reasonable. I'll think about it," I said. "That's all I ask." She smiled, relieved. "And there's one other thing. Carol and I were talking. We know this has been hard on you too. You've taken on such a burden, managing Marcus's estate, dealing with all the legal complexities. We want to help." "Help how?" "We have experience with this sort of thing, unfortunately. We've both been widows before. We know how to handle estates, settle accounts, avoid tax complications." She leaned forward. "What if we work together? You keep the assets, of course, but we help manage the transition. Take some of the weight off your shoulders." I almost laughed. They wanted access. Access to accounts, to documents, to opportunities for tampering or theft. "That's generous," I said. "But I have professional estate managers handling it." Her smile tightened. "Of course, but family is different. We understand what Marcus would have wanted." "Do you?" I set down my coffee cup. "Because I've been wondering about that. What Marcus wanted. What he was thinking those last few months." He was stressed. Valerie said quickly. "Work was overwhelming him. He wasn't sleeping well." "Was it work, or something else?" The air between us shifted. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm just trying to understand my brother's state of mind before he died." His heart gave out. She said, "It was sudden, tragic, but not mysterious. The doctors were very clear. Doctors can miss things. Jonathan." She reached across the table, put her hand on mine. Her skin was cold. I know you're looking for someone to blame. It's natural when we lose someone suddenly. But sometimes there's no villain. Sometimes people just die. I pulled my hand away. I'm not looking for a villain, Valerie. I'm looking for the truth. Her mask slipped, just for a second. The warmth drained from her expression, replaced by something calculating and hard. Then it returned, smooth as silk. The truth is that Marcus loved you, and I love his memory enough to want peace between us. She stood. Think about my offer. The house, the help with the estate. We could make this easy for everyone. Or it stays complicated. She picked up her purse. I hope you choose wisely. She left. I sat there for another 20 minutes, watching tourists haggle over fish and flowers, letting my heart rate return to normal. My phone buzzed. Detective Chen. Got everything on audio. The implied threat at the end is useful. Also, interesting body language when you mentioned doctors missing things. She knows you suspect. Another text. This one from an unknown number. Mr. Reeves, this is Raymond Foster, the toxicologist Elizabeth Cordell connected you with. I've finished my analysis. Can we meet? I have findings you need to see. Finally, a text from Elizabeth. How did it go? I typed back. They offered to buy me off. When that didn't work, they made veiled threats. They're getting desperate. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. Also, I have someone I want you to meet. A support group for people who've dealt with family narcissistic abuse. I know it sounds touchy-feely, but they might help. These situations are isolating. Isolating. Yes, that's exactly what this was. I'd been in Seattle for 2 weeks, living in hotels, trusting no one, eating alone. Send me the details. I wrote. That evening, I attended my first support group meeting in a church basement in Capitol Hill. 15 people sat in a circle, sharing stories of manipulation, gaslighting, abuse from family members who appeared normal to the outside world. I didn't share Marcus's story. It was too dangerous, too active. But I listened, and afterward, a woman in her 60s approached me. First time? She asked. That obvious? You have the look, like you've just realized the monster is real. She smiled sadly. I'm Patricia. My sister tried to steal my inheritance by convincing everyone I was incompetent. Took me 3 years to prove otherwise. Did you? Eventually. The truth has a way of surfacing if you're patient. She handed me her card. If you ever need to talk, or just need someone who understands, call me. I pocketed the card, feeling something unfamiliar. Hope, maybe. Or just relief at knowing I wasn't alone. Back at the hotel, I finally answered Valerie's follow-up email. I appreciate your offer, but I'm not interested in selling the house or accepting your help with the estate. I'm managing fine on my own. Her response came within minutes. I'm disappointed, Jonathan. I hoped we could be reasonable adults about this. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Dr. Foster and scheduled a meeting for Monday morning. The pieces were moving into place. Slowly, carefully, but moving. They came to my hotel on Sunday evening, unannounced. I was reviewing Dr. Foster's preliminary report when the front desk called up. Mr. Reeves, you have visitors. Valerie Reeves and Carol Vance. Should I send them up? My stomach dropped. How did they know I was here? I'm not at liberty to say, sir. They'd tracked me somehow. Asked around, maybe bribed someone. It didn't matter. They were here. Tell them I'll come down to the lobby. They insist on speaking privately, sir. They say it's a family matter. I thought fast. My room wasn't safe, too isolated, but refusing to see them would only escalate things. Tell them to wait in the lobby. I'll be down in 5 minutes. I grabbed my phone, texted Detective Chen. Valerie and Carol showed up at my hotel unannounced, meeting them in lobby. Are you available? Her response. On my way. 10 minutes. Stall them. I went downstairs. The lobby was moderately busy. A few tourists checking in, a businessman working on his laptop in the seating area. Not ideal, but better than a private room. Valerie and Carol sat on a sofa near the fireplace, waiting. They'd coordinated again, both in elegant casual wear, both with expressions of concerned determination. I approached but didn't sit. "This is a surprise." "We need to talk," Carol said. "Really talk, without lawyers and public places and all this formality. The lobby is as private as I'm comfortable with. Jonathan, please." Valerie gestured to the chair across from them. 5 minutes, that's all we ask." Against my better judgment, I sat, but I angled my chair toward the front desk, keeping exits in view. "We're worried about you," Carol began. "You're not yourself. You're isolated, paranoid, making decisions that don't make sense. My decisions make perfect sense." "Do they?" Valerie leaned forward. "You've inherited a substantial estate, but you're living in hotels, cutting yourself off from family, refusing reasonable offers of help. Marcus wouldn't want this for you." "How do you know what Marcus wanted?" "Because I was his wife for 5 years," Valerie snapped. Then she moderated her tone. "I knew him, Jonathan. His habits, his thoughts, his fears." "His fears?" I repeated. "Tell me about those." She hesitated, sensing a trap. He worried about his health. Family history of heart disease. What else did he worry about? Work stress. Money, though we had plenty. The usual things. Did he ever worry about you? The question hung in the air. Carol's expression hardened. "What kind of question is that?" Carol said, a direct one. "You're suggesting something," Valerie said softly. "Why don't you just say it?" Here it was, the moment of truth. I could back down, play ignorant, stay safe. Or I could show my hand. "Marcus was afraid of you," I said. "Both of you. In his last weeks, he was terrified." "That's ridiculous," Carol said, but Valerie held up a hand. "Let him finish. He knew what you were doing. The dig oxen, the forged medical records, the pattern with your previous husbands. He documented everything." Silence. The businessman across the lobby looked up briefly, then returned to his laptop. Valerie's expression didn't change. That was the most frightening part, the complete lack of surprise or denial. "That's quite an accusation," she said calmly. "Based on what? The paranoid delusions of a man who was clearly suffering from mental illness? Based on evidence." "What evidence?" Carol demanded. "If you had evidence of a crime, you'd have gone to the police." "Who says I haven't?" That landed. Carol glanced at Valerie, a flicker of uncertainty. "The police would have contacted us," Valerie said. "The fact that they haven't tells me you have nothing. Just Marcus's conspiracy theories and your own suspicions. Maybe they're building a case. Or maybe," Valerie said, her voice dropping to something cold and sharp, "you're making a mistake that's going to cost you everything. Is that another threat?" "It's reality." She stood. "You think you're protecting Marcus's memory by playing detective. You think you're the hero in this story, but you're just a man out of his depth, making accusations he can't prove against people who have very good lawyers." Carol stood too. "We came here to give you one last chance to be reasonable, to work with us instead of against us, but clearly that's not going to happen." "No," I said, "it's not." "Fine." Valerie's smile was razor-thin. "Then let me be very clear. You want a war? You'll get one. We'll tie up that estate in litigation for years. We'll depose you, audit you, investigate every aspect of your life. We'll make you wish you'd taken our offer. You can try." "Oh, we'll do more than try." She leaned down, her face close to mine. "And Jonathan? Accidents happen, especially to people who don't watch where they're going." "I'll be careful then." "You do that." She straightened. "Come on, Carol, we're done here." They walked out, heels clicking on marble, backs straight, Two women in complete control. Except they weren't. Not anymore. My hands were shaking. Not from fear alone, though there was plenty of that. From adrenaline, anger, from the raw reality of confronting murderers to their faces and calling them out. Detective Chen appeared 5 minutes later, slightly out of breath. Did I miss it? Just barely. Tell me everything. I did. She recorded it on her phone, taking notes, her expression growing more intense. They threatened you directly again. Good. Good? It shows consciousness of guilt. They're not dismissing you as crazy, they're treating you as a threat. That means they know you're onto something real. She put away her phone. How are you holding up? Honestly, I'm scared, but I'm also angry. Marcus lived in fear of them for months. He died knowing they'd won. I won't let them win again. Good, because I have news. The detective from the Vance case found something. Carol's second husband. There was a life insurance policy no one knew about. $2 million paid out to a trust. Care to guess who the trustee was? Valerie. Exactly. They've been working together for over a decade, pooling resources, targeting wealthy men, and splitting the proceeds. We're building a RICO case, organized criminal enterprise. How long until you can arrest them? We need more. Specifically, we need the medical evidence to hold up. That's where your toxicologist comes in. If he can prove Marcus was poisoned and we can link it to them, we have a prosecutable case. I met with Dr. Foster the next morning. His report was devastating. Marcus's digoxin levels were 3 times therapeutic range. He explained, "That's not a medical error. That's deliberate, chronic poisoning. Based on the metabolites in his system, I'd estimate he was receiving doses for at least 3 months before his death." Can you prove Valerie administered it? Not directly, but I can prove it was administered and that it caused his death. Combined with access and motive, that's usually enough. Usually. Not always. But it was a start. I left his office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. They'd threatened me, tried to manipulate me, attempted to buy me off. None of it had worked. Now it was my turn to act. The hearing was scheduled for Thursday morning, 2 weeks after my confrontation with Valerie and Carol in the hotel lobby. They'd filed their will contest, claiming Marcus had been mentally incompetent when he changed his will. Elizabeth had countered with a motion to dismiss, supported by Dr. Foster's expert testimony about Marcus's poisoning. But this wasn't just about the will anymore. Detective Chen had worked with the prosecutor's office to prepare criminal charges. Today's hearing would determine if there was enough evidence to proceed with a full investigation. If the judge found probable cause, arrest warrants would follow. I arrived at the courthouse early, wearing my best suit, my evidence folders organized and ready. Elizabeth met me on the steps. "Are you prepared?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." "Remember, stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't volunteer information. The prosecutor will handle the criminal aspects. We're just establishing the will's validity. And if they attack me? Let me handle it. That's what you pay me for." Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. Valerie and Carol sat with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. They didn't look at me as I entered. Judge Morrison was a woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense efficiency. She reviewed the filings while we waited, her expression neutral. "Let's proceed," she said finally. "This is a hearing on the motion to dismiss the will contest, combined with an evidentiary hearing regarding potential criminal matters. Councillor Cordell, you may begin." Elizabeth stood. "Your Honour, this will contest is without merit. Marcus Reeves was of sound mind when he updated his will 6 weeks before his death. He did so with proper legal counsel, after discovering disturbing evidence that his wife was planning to harm him." Valerie's attorney shot up. "Objection. That's inflammatory and unsupported." "It's supported by Marcus Reeves's own documentation, which we'll present today. Your Honour, this isn't just a will contest, it's a murder case." The courtroom went silent. Judge Morrison looked over her glasses. That's a serious allegation, Counselor. I'm aware, Your Honor. We have expert testimony, medical evidence, and documentary proof that Marcus Reeves was poisoned over a period of months by his wife, Valerie Reeves, with assistance from her sister, Carol Vance. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Valerie's attorney protested. My clients came here to contest a will, not to be accused of murder. If the state believes it has a criminal case, that's a separate matter. Actually, a new voice said, it's very much related. Assistant District Attorney Patricia Morrison, no relation to the judge, entered from the side door. Your Honor, the state has been conducting a parallel investigation. We're prepared to present evidence today that supports both the will contest dismissal and criminal charges. Judge Morrison looked intrigued. Very well, let's hear it. Dr. Foster? Dr. Raymond Foster took the stand. For the next 45 minutes, he walked through his toxicology report. Marcus's digoxin levels, the timeline of poisoning, the medical records showing a diagnosis that didn't exist before Valerie's recommended cardiologist. Valerie's attorney tried to poke holes. Couldn't these elevated levels be from a prescription error, a pharmacy mistake? Not with this pattern, Dr. Foster said calmly. Chronic poisoning shows specific metabolic markers. Marcus Reeves was given steady, deliberate doses over months. This wasn't an accident. But you can't prove who administered them. No, but I can prove they were administered and that they killed him. Next, Detective Chen testified about the pattern of deaths. 4 previous husbands, all dying within 5 to 7 years of marriage, all from heart-related issues, all leaving substantial estates to their widows. In each case, Detective Chen said, we found similar medical anomalies, elevated cardiac medication levels, unexplained symptoms in the months before death, and in each case, the widow and her sister were present, involved in the victim's care. Circumstantial, Valerie's attorney said. Patterns are evidence, Counselor. Judge Morrison said. Continue, Detective. We also found financial records. After Richard Vance's death, Carol's second husband, a life insurance payout of $2 million went to a trust administered by Valerie Reeves. Similar arrangements existed with the other victims. The sisters were pooling resources, working together. That's perfectly legal, the attorney protested. Family members often help each other financially. It is legal, Ida Morrison agreed. Unless the money was obtained through murder, then it was my turn. I took the stand, my hands steady. Elizabeth walked me through the discovery of the hidden room, the documents Marcus had left, his journal entries detailing his suspicions and fears. Did your brother seem paranoid to you? Elizabeth asked. No. He seemed terrified, which is different. Paranoia is irrational. Marcus had rational reasons to fear for his life. Based on the evidence he'd gathered, based on the pattern he'd discovered, based on Valerie's actions. Valerie's attorney cross-examined me aggressively. Isn't it true you and your brother had a financial motive to exclude Valerie from the will? No. You inherited everything, millions of dollars. That's quite a motive to fabricate evidence. I didn't fabricate anything. Marcus left me the evidence because he knew I'd use it. Or because you manipulated a sick man. Objection, Elizabeth said. Assumes facts not in evidence. Sustained. But Valerie's attorney wasn't done. Mr. Reeves, have you been under any psychological stress lately? Grief can cause people to see patterns that don't exist, to believe conspiracies. I believe what the evidence shows. What it shows is that you want someone to blame for your brother's death, and you've fixated on my clients. I've fixated on the truth. Judge Morrison intervened. That's enough. Step down, Mr. Reeves. Finally, Ada Morrison called her surprise witness. The maintenance worker from the funeral, the man who'd given me the key, entered the courtroom. His name was Robert Paulson, and he'd worked at Marcus's architectural firm for 30 years. Mr. Paulson, how did you know Marcus Reeves? He was my friend, Paulson said simply. He helped me when my wife got sick, paid for treatments insurance wouldn't cover. I owed him. And what did he ask you to do? 3 weeks before he died, he gave me a key. Said if anything happened to him, I should give it to his brother at the funeral. No one else, just Jonathan. Did he say why? He said his wife was trying to kill him. Said he had proof, but he couldn't risk her finding it. So he hid it where only his brother would look. Valerie's composure finally cracked. He was paranoid, she said loudly. Delusional. This is absurd. Ms. Reeves, you'll have your chance to testify, Judge Morrison said sharply. But Valerie was standing now, her attorney trying to pull her back down. I loved Marcus. I took care of him. This is a witch hunt, a conspiracy. Sit down, Ms. Reeves. I will not sit down and be accused of murder by a man who's trying to steal my inheritance. You have no inheritance, I said quietly. Marcus saw to that. She turned on me, and for a moment the mask was completely gone. What I saw was pure hatred, calculation, rage at being exposed. You have no idea what you've done, she hissed. I know exactly what I've done. I've finished what Marcus started. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order. Ms. Reeves, control yourself or be held in contempt. Valerie sat, but her hands were shaking. Carol put a hand on her arm, whispering urgently. Ander Morrison addressed the judge. Your Honor, the state has sufficient evidence to proceed with criminal charges. We're requesting arrest warrants for Valerie Reeves and Carol Vance for the murder of Marcus Reeves and conspiracy to commit murder. Motion granted, Judge Morrison said. Bailiff, take them into custody. The courtroom erupted. Everything happened fast after Judge Morrison's order. 2 bailiffs approached Valerie and Carol. Their attorney was protesting loudly, citing procedure and rights, but the judge was unmoved. Probable cause had been established. The arrest warrants were valid. Valerie Reeves, Carol Vance, you're under arrest for the murder of Marcus Reeves and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. Valerie's face went white, then red. This is illegal. You can't do this. We haven't been convicted of anything. That's what trials are for, Ander Morrison said coolly. Carol was silent, but her eyes darted around the courtroom, looking for an exit that didn't exist. The bailiffs handcuffed them both, and for the first time I saw real fear in their expressions. Jonathan, Valerie called out as they led her towards the side door. Jonathan, please, don't let them do this. We can talk about this. We can work something out. I said nothing, just watched as they took her away. Carol was next, still silent, but she turned to look at me before they led her out. Her expression wasn't fearful. It was calculating, already planning, strategizing how to turn this around. But she couldn't. Not this time. The courtroom cleared slowly. Elizabeth put a hand on my shoulder. You did it. Your brother would be proud. It's not over yet. No, but it will be. The state has a strong case now. Multiple counts, multiple victims, a clear pattern. They're looking at life sentences. Detective Chen approached, looking satisfied. We're searching both their homes right now. We'll find more evidence, I guarantee it. People like this don't cover all their tracks. She was right. Over the next 3 days, the investigation expanded exponentially. Search warrants revealed a hidden storage unit rented under a false name, containing files on 8 different men, potential targets, men with money and no close family, men who fit the profile. They found chemical purchase records, forged prescriptions, fake medical credentials Carol had used to pose as a nurse to gain access to victims, email exchanges between the sisters discussing their projects, a cold, business-like correspondence about murder. The media picked up the story. Black Widow sisters face multiple murder charges. Decade-long killing spree uncovered. How they got away with it for so long. I watched the news coverage from my hotel room, still processing everything. My phone rang constantly, reporters wanting interviews, distant relatives I barely knew offering support, curious acquaintances drawn by tragedy. I ignored most of them, but I did take one call. "Mr. Reeves, this is Patricia from the support group." "I remember. I saw the news. I wanted to check in, see how you're doing. I don't know, relieved, angry, sad. All of those are normal. You've been through trauma. You've exposed dangerous people who threatened you. That's not nothing." I keep thinking about Marcus. How alone he must have felt those last months. But he wasn't alone. He had you. He knew you'd finish this. I wish I'd known sooner. I wish I could have saved him. You saved others. Those 8 men in the storage unit files, they're alive because of you. I hadn't thought about it that way. "Thank you," I said. "The group meets Thursday if you want to come by." I might. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Bail was denied. Flight risk, danger to the community. Valerie and Carol were held in separate facilities, unable to coordinate their defense. Their attorney withdrew, citing conflicts. They went through 3 more lawyers before finding someone willing to take the case. Even then, the defense strategy was clearly hopeless. Too much evidence, too many victims, too clear a pattern. Ida Morrison called me a week before the hearing. "They want to deal." "What kind of deal?" "Valerie wants to testify against Carol in exchange for second-degree murder and a 20-year sentence. She claims Carol was the mastermind, that she was coerced into participating." "That's bullsh." "I know, but it might be useful. If one of them turns, it strengthens the case against both of them. We can take Valerie's testimony and still prosecute her for first-degree murder." "I do it!" But Carol beat Valerie to it. Her new attorney reached out the next day with a counteroffer. Carol would provide information on previous victims, names, dates, methods, in exchange for life, with possibility of parole instead of life without. "She's trying to save herself," Detective Chen explained when we met to discuss it. "She knows she's facing the death penalty in some jurisdictions. Washington doesn't have it, but we're coordinating with other states where the murders occurred." "Let them both burn," I said. "That's my preference too." The preliminary hearing was a formality. The evidence was overwhelming. Both Valerie and Carol were bound over for trial on multiple counts. 5 counts of first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, and a dozen lesser charges. The trial wouldn't happen for months, maybe a year, but the outcome was inevitable. I attended every hearing, every motion, every procedural step. I owed Marcus that much. I owed all their victims that much. 6 weeks after the arrest, Detective Chen called with news. They found Thomas Chen's medical records, Valerie's first husband. Same pattern. Digoxin poisoning, forged cardiac diagnosis. We're reopening the case. Then another call. Richard Vance. Same thing. We've got them on at least 4 solid murder charges, possibly 8. Each revelation was another nail in their coffin. 3 months after the arrest, both Valerie and Carol pleaded guilty to avoid trial. Valerie got 40 years without parole. Carol got life without parole. Both were sent to maximum security facilities in different states, ensuring they'd never see each other again. The day of sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and listened as the judge read the charges, the evidence, the verdict. Valerie cried. Carol stared straight ahead, emotionless. "Do the defendants have anything to say?" Judge Morrison asked. Valerie stood. I'm so sorry, I never meant—" "Save it," the judge said. "You murdered 5 men for money. You destroyed families. You showed no remorse until you were caught. The court finds your apology hollow and self-serving." Carol declined to speak. "Valerie Reeves, you are sentenced to 40 years in the state penitentiary without possibility of parole. Carol Vance, you are sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Bailiff, take them away." I watched them go, handcuffed, defeated, stripped of their masks and their power. It was over. Marcus's estate was finally released from probate. I inherited everything as he'd intended. His house, his accounts, his architectural legacy. But more than that, I inherited his courage, his determination to expose the truth even when it cost him everything. I sold the house. I couldn't live there, couldn't sleep in rooms where they'd plotted his murder. The proceeds went to a foundation I established in Marcus's name, supporting victims of domestic violence and families dealing with suspicious deaths. His architectural firm thrived. I made sure of that, taking an active role in its management, ensuring his designs continued to shape the skyline. And every Tuesday, the day Marcus died, I visited his grave and told him about the progress. The Foundation's work, the lives saved, the justice served. "You won," I told him. "They're gone. You're remembered, and they're forgotten." Not quite true. They'd be remembered as cautionary tales, as monsters. But Marcus would be remembered as he deserved. Talented, kind, brave. That was enough. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood in the main gallery of the Seattle Art Museum at the opening of an exhibition titled Marcus Reeves Building Dreams. His architectural sketches, models, and photographs filled the space, celebrating his vision and talent. The turnout was impressive. Hundreds of people, including many who'd worked with Marcus, clients whose buildings he'd designed, students he'd mentored. I'd partnered with his firm to organize it, wanting the world to see him as he truly was. Brilliant, creative, generous. Robert Paulson attended, wearing a suit for the occasion. We shook hands near a large photograph of Marcus's most famous project, a sustainable housing complex that had won international awards. "He'd be proud of you," Robert said. "I'm just finishing what he started." "No, you're doing more than that. You're making sure he's remembered right." The foundation I'd established was growing. In 6 months, we'd helped 12 families get second opinions on suspicious deaths, funded 3 investigations that led to arrests, and provided support services to dozens of domestic violence survivors. I'd moved back to Philadelphia but kept an apartment in Seattle, traveling back monthly for foundation work. My own business had suffered during the investigation, but I'd rebuilt it. My clients understood. Some had even contributed to Marcus's foundation. I'd started dating again, carefully, slowly. A woman named Sarah, a fellow financial advisor I'd known for years. Nothing serious yet, but it felt good to be open to possibilities. Life was good. Not perfect. I still had nightmares, still saw Valerie's cold smile in quiet moments. But good. I was healing. Valerie and Carol were not. Detective Chen, who'd become a friend, kept me updated on their situations. She wasn't supposed to, but she knew I needed to know. "Valerie's in a women's facility in Oregon," she told me over coffee one afternoon. "Apparently she's having a hard time adjusting. Other inmates know what she did. Black widows aren't popular in prison." "Good. She's in protective custody most of the time. Solitary, basically. Minimum human contact. She'll spend the next 40 years like that." 40 years. She was 62 now. She'd likely die in prison. "And Carol? Worse. She's in Colorado. Maximum security. Got into a fight her first month. Another inmate attacked her with a shiv. She survived, but she's got a permanent scar across her face. Lost her appeal last month. Life without parole means exactly that." "How old is she?" 59. She could live another 30 years in there. 30 years of locked doors, strip searches, prison food, violence, monotony. No more designer clothes, luxury homes, wealthy husbands to manipulate. No freedom at all. The contrast wasn't lost on me. While I stood in art galleries celebrating my brother's legacy, they sat in concrete cells. While I built a foundation to help others, they fought over commissary privileges. While I moved forward with my life, theirs had ended. "You know what the worst part is for them?" Detective Chen said. "They still think they were smart. Carol writes letters claiming she was framed. Valerie keeps filing pointless appeals. They can't accept that they lost. They murdered 5 men. They deserve worse than prison." "I agree, but this is what we've got, and it's something." It was more than something. It was justice. I'd learned that 3 of the families of previous victims had filed civil suits against Valerie and Carol's estates, seeking damages. They'd win, almost certainly. Every asset the sisters had accumulated through murder would be seized, distributed to the families they'd destroyed. Nothing left. No money, no freedom, no future. Meanwhile, Marcus's foundation expanded. By the end of the first year, we'd helped 23 families, prevented who knows how many future tragedies. Marcus's name was becoming synonymous with protection, advocacy, justice. I hired staff, a director, 2 investigators, a victim advocate. People who understood what it meant to lose someone to violence disguised as natural causes. We partnered with law enforcement, trained officers to recognize patterns of chronic poisoning, pushed for better protocols in suspicious death investigations, and slowly, the nightmares faded. The hypervigilance eased. I stopped checking my food obsessively, stopped looking over my shoulder constantly. Valerie and Carol couldn't hurt anyone anymore. They were caged, powerless, forgotten by everyone except their victims' families and the justice system. 1 year after the sentencing, I received a letter from Valerie, forwarded through Elizabeth, who'd advised me not to read it. I read it anyway. It was 12 pages of self-justification, accusations, appeals for mercy. She claimed she'd been abused, manipulated, forced into things against her will. She claimed she'd loved Marcus, that his death had been an accident, a medication error she'd never intended. Lies, all lies! I burned the letter and never responded. That same week, I received a different letter. From Thomas Chen's daughter, thanking me for exposing her father's murder. She'd been 19 when he died, had spent years thinking she should have noticed something was wrong. My investigation had given her closure, proof that she couldn't have known. You saved my family from years of guilt. She wrote, "Thank you for having the courage to see the truth." That letter I kept. I framed it and hung it in my office, next to a photograph of Marcus and me from years ago, both of us smiling, brothers who'd had each other's backs. I'd kept that promise. I'd had his back when it mattered most, and now I was living the life he'd have wanted for me. Free, purposeful, at peace, while his killers rotted in cells they'd never leave. Justice, finally, had been served. So that's my story. The hidden room, the terrible truth, and the fight for justice that followed. It cost me months of fear, sleepless nights, and the constant weight of knowing my brother died trying to expose monsters. But it was worth it. Every moment was worth it. Now I ask you, what would you have done? Would you have opened that door? Would you have fought for the truth even when it put you in danger? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to my channel. I have more stories to share, stories of courage, justice, and the strength it takes to fight for what's right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, the truth always matters, even when it's buried behind wine racks and locked doors. Stay vigilant, stay brave, and never stop asking questions.